Hi everyone, it's Amy, and I'm back with episode 5 of the Vintage Made Modern series. Today we're going to talk about chapter 4 in the Vintage Notions book. And this chapter is the birthday month. So why is it the birthday month? Well, my birthday is in April, so with spring, it just seemed like the right time to talk about a thimbleful of youthfulness, and that is the modern, well, here's my modern notion that reflects upon the vintage notion that Mary Brooks Picken wrote. And the name of the essay this month is Measure Birthdays by the Heart, a thimbleful of youthfulness. And you can see some more beautiful embroidery that are on the pages of this book. And again, this essay by Mary Brooks Picken was dated 1924. So I'll flip through the pages just so you can see the wonderful graphics. Here's the Department of Inspiration where we colored an image with daffodils, just beautiful color and illustrations. And moving forward, we even have the Department of Good Looks talking about the story your hands tell. This chapter has wonderful articles on, in the sewing department category, things to make with needle and thread. So I wanted to get right into talking about, first of all, the Department of Sewing and Patchwork and Applique. So what you'll see on the pages here is that this article is dated 1928 in the Fashion Service magazine, and it is Patchwork and Applique. It discusses the two basic methods of quilting. So I thought it would be fun to share with you some of the graphics that we used on these pages and where they came from. So I'm going to show you some things from my collection as well as some original publications. So some textiles and some publications. So to start with, I'm going to show you where the artwork, some of the artwork came from. And what we have here is a really gorgeous illustration on the cover of the Patchwork book. And you can see that this was the Women's World Service Library. Well, within this series, they had, each year they produced this title. And I will show you another issue I was lucky enough to come across. And again, it's the Book of Patchwork. Now, this one is Women's World, but you can see it's a little different era, but wonderful illustrations here. So I'm going to open up one of the issues and show you some of the pages that are similar to the art that we have. This illustration is the one that is on the page that I just showed you. Some of the other examples are of, I love this, excuse my little post-it note, quaint patchwork for the modern home. And you can see just some of the different basic block titles. And I think I'm going to put on glasses so I can read here. This is Hibiscus, Four Birds. I love this one, Wild Goose Chase. And again, you can see how these were actually patchwork incorporated into pillows. And one of the textiles I'm going to share with you is a pillow, so that's kind of fun. Patchwork adds beauty to one's home. So there you have the Women's World issue. I wanted to show you one more out of my collection, and this is a series that went on for several years. I'm not sure really about the total history on it, but it was Grandmother Clark's Patchwork Quilt Design. And again, the fun thing is learning the different blocks. And speaking of this, I'm going to quickly show you, because of these blocks that you're seeing, a book that we have at Indigo Junction and that I published based on a series of vintage quilt blocks and their names. And what I did was I found a publication from the early 1900s that had the whole library of quilt blocks in line art. And then I decided that how fun would that be to create coloring pages with those blocks. I'm not going to spend time showing you too much in this book, only because we've actually filmed a video about our coloring book series that I want you to watch. So again, once in a while on different pages, we also have quotes that share a little bit about quilting and the meaning it has for people in their lives. So show you the back cover too. So keep in mind, if you enjoy coloring, we do have Quilt Therapy, which is a Vintage Notions coloring book. So that is piecing. So what we've talked about is pieced quilts. There's another method for quilting called applique. And in this article, it also talks about applique. And it also gives you examples of how to stitch your applique. Everything from a blanket stitch to apply your applique piece to a satin stitch or running stitch. And I looked through my collection and found this example of a applique, and this is an example of a blanket stitch being added around this butterfly. And I think, number one, I love this butterfly. I think the fabrics make it look modern, and I love the way that they use the black for the body of the butterfly. But you can look at the material that this is stitched on, and I'm not honestly sure how old this is, but I do think it is definitely an older piece. Next, I want to show you another applique version of quilting, and here you can see where this is more of a blind stitched applique where the stitches are hidden, and just potentially a whip stitch that has been used to apply the different pieces of the applique. And today there's so many tools and techniques to help you make applique and refine the detail that you do as far as piecing. And this just gives you a taste of a vintage method that was used. So quickly, I'll show you a few more pieces from my quilt collection. Simple blocks. Here's just a very simple block, and I love the prints in here, the 30s prints. Here is another block that is actually just a combination of shirting. Very simple, yet graphically, I think, just dynamic, and the contrast here really is nice, as well as the the stripes in balancing with the small print. Here we have a log cabin quilt block. Now here's a little combination of sorts where we have a circular quilt block. And I wanted to show you, sometimes you're able, when you're maybe at estate sales or garage sales, antique shops, to find a series of blocks that have never been made into the quilt. And that's what I'm showing you here. So these two blocks probably came from the same quilter as she was preparing to maybe combine them into a larger quilt. But I collect it all. I love it all. The fabrics just entertain me with their details. You can see here the polka dot. I love polka dots. I don't know about you. And then one last example, paper piecing. And these are two examples of some larger pieces that have been quilted. And again, some really unique fabrics are in these pieces. In one in particular I wanted to share with you, which is like one of my favorite little fabrics I've found, is this darling print that has little horses, houses, just a variety of cute imagery that is just so dainty. And again, that 30s feel of prints is one of the categories that I love to collect. So next up, I want to take you through another feature in this chapter 4 of Vintage Notions. And I'm going to flip over to house dresses. This spread is in the Department of Fashion. And you can see here where we are talking about frocks. So many times dresses are referred to as frocks. And here are ones that are featured. The idea that no matter whether you're working inside of the home or outside of the home, it always is nice to have a beautiful dress on to wear. And speaking of dresses, this gives me a chance to tell you about Indigo Junction's free pattern. So for our Facebook group, we have a complimentary pattern, exclusive pattern to those of you who join the Facebook group. And this is the pattern. I thought I'd share it with you today. It is called the Everyday Dress, and it's a raglan sleeved top dress that can be made in a longer length, a tunic length, or a top length. And you can see here, I believe this is a Girl Charlie print knit that we used. It has pockets. And if you go and join the group on Facebook, you will have access to this pattern. So keep that in mind as you're wanting to expand what you do, maybe in sewing some clothes that you can wear out of fabrics. There's so many great new fabrics on the market that we work with them day in and day out, and it's so exciting to have a free pattern that people can use and source some of those new fabrics. So next up, we're going to talk about the magic pattern that's in this chapter of the book. And the magic pattern in this chapter is actually one of my favorites. So let me find my little piece of paper here and share it with you. It is the fabric flower. And what it says here is fashionable for spring. It is easily and quickly made. So we always like those quick and easy projects. And what I'm going to show you now is here you can see the vintage version. And this is called, well, it looks like a mum, right? And you can see where not only is it shown at the shoulder, but that also the idea, which I thought was really creative, to show it worn at the waist or to show it worn on a hat. So think about that as you're creating fabric flowers. So this series is geared to Vintage Made Modern, and so I want to share with you the modern version of this inspiration. And that ended up being a book that we did, let me get it over here, with Indigo Junction, and it is called Fabric Flowers. But first of all, here is the chrysanthemum, get that, which we are in the book, Fabric Flowers. It is called the Magnificent Mum. So this is just a really fun, easy flower to make. What we used here to make this is like a lawn or a voile fabric, so it's very soft, almost a little bit sheer in its weight, and we trimmed a little bit in the middle just to give it a little more dimension. And I'm going to flip through that to that project now, so you can see this is a fun shot with one of our Indigo Junction clothing patterns. And we ended up just putting this on the corner of the cowl neck. And I also wanted to show you how another idea for flowers that we don't always think about maybe is to actually embellish a pillow with some flowers. And that's what we did here in the photographed that's just shown like on a centerpiece on a bed, essentially. So I'll flip through the pages because this is one of my very favorite books that we've published at Indigo Junction. The photo styling really was strong here. We used a lot of tools from Clover Needlecraft. They have some flower making tools you might be interested in. We also recycled and upcycled. This is a t-shirt flower. This is a flower made out of recycled cashmere sweaters. So we just have some magnificent options as far as variety of flowers in this book. And again, I'll stop here at my favorite, one of my favorites, which is upcycling denim. That's a category that we really enjoy designing in, and this was a fun flower. But notice what we did here as that I think really adds character to the flower is we frayed the edge of the denim, and then sometimes the wrong and right side of the denim can provide you a contrast that gives you a nice definition of the circular rose shape, I will call it. So you can see there where there's the wrong side of the denim and the right side of the denim. So I think we've given you a lot of inspiration for fabric flowers as well as some quilting ideas, and I hope you've enjoyed today's episode 4. I'll look forward to seeing you next time, and I encourage you to give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and also subscribe to our newsletter and our social media platforms. We've put all the links in the description. Thanks again for watching.